All right. Hello, everybody. My name is Kate Wexfell, and I'm the founder and executive director of The Compass. And here today, I am with Clara Brown. And so she was named by Starfish as one of the 25 young environmentalists under 25. So, Clara, would you just give us a brief introduction about yourself and the different projects that you're working on right now?
Yeah, sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Clara Brown. I'm an environmental advocate, and I work as Kate just said, I'm a top 25 environmentalist under 25 in Canada, and I work with organizations such as the UN Major Group for Children and Youth, and I'm very committed to my advocacy work.
Yeah. And then could you tell us how old you are?
I'm 15.
15. So that is incredibly impressive. So yeah, I am seeing that you have had like a very vast experience with being an environmentalist. And so, what sort of prompted you to become interested in the environment and protecting, our planet?
Yeah, sure. So I think what prompted me to become an environmental advocate is just that I recognize the need for more action to be taken on um, on climate change and in environmental sectors. I found it really powerful, the messages of hope for the future for when regarding climate change. And I found the other environmental advocates so inspiring. And I wanted to become an environmental advocate so that I could contribute in my own way to help further the combating climate change.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Was there any specific moment that you realized that this was your calling or your passion?
Um, I can't pinpoint an exact time, but I know that I've been very passionate about environmental work for a long time. So yeah, I can't pinpoint an exact time, but I've been very passionate about environment since I love being in the environment. I love taking hikes and going for walks and stuff like that. So I think that's something that just always came naturally to me.
Yeah, where's your favorite place to hike? Are there some good hiking spots in Canada?
Yeah, I love Algonquin Park, especially the Big Pines Trail. That one is really beautiful. And and the Silver Queen Mine Trail as well is really beautiful. It's an old mica mine, and you can really see the history in the trail.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And so one of the things that you do is you work for Plan International Canada. What's sort of the need that you guys have identified within Canada that you're working on right now?
Sure. So Plain International Canada works mainly on providing in my area, I just completed the Girls Belong Here Innovation Hub program. So that's all about empowering young women to step into roles of leadership so that they can be confident leaders of the future. So I think that's one main point that they work on. They're also very dedicated to working with children and promoting children's rights.
Yeah, so what are some of the issues within children's rights that you've been seeing in Canada, or like issues that you would like to tackle now or in the future?
With regards to children's rights, I think it's really important to see children in positions of where their voices are heard. But specifically, that there are a lot of initiatives popping up that are promoting young adults and young people to step into positions of leadership. But I really think that children's voices should be included in the decision making process that really affect them.
Yeah, so what are some of the decisions that you've been involved in? I know that you've worked on writing policy. Could you tell me about that experience?
Yes, so I have experience with policy and advocacy work with UNICEF Canada. That was the 2022 Youth Advocacy Program. And it was really inspiring to see that group of young leaders and advocates all coming together to in a covering a wide variety of topics and just pushing forward for the youth involvement, as I was saying before.
Yeah. But so was your policy actually enacted in Canada, or did you guys draft policy, or what was that type of process?
Well, the first step was that we learned about policy and the throughout the year-long program, and then at the end of it, we had an event where it's available on YouTube actually, where I asked a question of the Governor General of Canada about her views on climate change and youth involvement. So that, I think, was one of the main points that really culminated the end of the UNICEF program.
Mm-hmm. What was their response?
She agreed with me that there was need to involve more young people in decision-making processes in Canada, and I found that so inspiring that she was also committed to youth involvement.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then what have been some of the other programs that you've been involved in? Like, I know that you've had a fellowship. I know you've done other stuff with the United Nations. Could you tell me a little bit more about the other initiatives that you've been part of?
Yeah, sure. So, as another thing that I've been working on recently is that I'm a member of UNGO, the UN framework for children and climate change. And that is something that I find, and I recently wrote a global youth statement for COP27. And with the adaptation working group, I'm a member of both the adaptation working group and the water and climate working group. So that I co-drafted a global youth statement, which was presented at COP27 to decision makers.
What was in your statement?
Well, it was primarily on the topic of adaptation, and it was drafted with the adaptation working group. So it was all about, how climate change is affecting our, our world today, and how we can continue to change the way we think and we act on our world today based on the changing environment that climate change is creating.
Yeah, do you have any recommendations? Because I know personally for me, I feel very strongly about flood mitigation, which would probably relate to your work with water, because in my region, that's a huge, huge issue. And so I know that I've talked to people about building better levees to combat against that, increasing knowledge for just people who live in floodplains on that type of thing. Was any of that part of your work? Do you have anything to say about that?
Yeah, sure. So one thing that I think is a very important first step to take with adaptation is to get in the right mindset, to encourage people and engage people in adaptation and processes. So edu education is something that's really important because we always talk about climate change as this really big issue, and sometimes we don't really talk about adaptation a lot. We talk about how we want to combat climate change with certain processes, or we're doing this or we're doing that to combat climate change right now, but we're not necessarily talking a whole lot about how we can rethink our processes and sort of go with how continue on with these processes with adaptation, so that as climate change continually gets worse, we are prepared for these.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Um, And I know, especially where I'm at, there's a lot of stuff with that because we can't necessarily reverse climate change. We just have to try to prevent it in the future, but then also adapt to the fact that we live in sort of a new environment today. Um, like we're never going to get those 2 degrees back that climate has risen in the past 100 years or so. So yeah, we kind of have to change our methods. I would maybe recommend for you to look into resilient farming practices as well. I know that there's been a lot of um, changes that are being enacted with like agrivoltaics so that people are able to get renewable energy while growing the crops. I don't know if
Mm-hmm.
that was part of your work at all, and then crop covers to protect from flooding and drought and then just heat in general. But yeah, those are all great things. And I know that Canada has a pretty similar climate and just geographical scope that's similar to the US where I'm at right now. So yeah.
Mm.
Do you guys or have any of the programs that you've been involved in worked at all with farmers, or do you guys reach out to local communities? Or...
Oh, we are definitely encouraged to reach out to our local communities to really get them involved with our programs. And that's something that I really try to do with social media, particularly as well, so that I increase my reach not only within my community, but within a wider a wider or span of people that see how these programs are positively affecting our world.
Yeah. Which social media platforms are you on? Are you more focused on sort of climate education then? I'm taking it.
I'm very focused on climate action and climate education. I'm most active on LinkedIn, I would say. I also have Twitter and Instagram and Facebook as well. But I'm most active on LinkedIn, I would say.
Okay. Do you share like other people's content or do you create videos or like what kind of way are you engaging?
I mainly try to share, as I said before, I mainly try to share these information about these programs that I'm in, so that it encourages other youth to get involved and to step into those positions of leadership that they need to become the next leaders.
Mm-hmm. And then since you're 15, you're still in school and everything like that. Um, and I know that something that I've personally noticed in my own life is that there are a lot of people who do want to get involved in community programs, but they just don't know what's out there or they don't know that
Mm-hmm.
they can get
Mm-hmm.
involved. So what would you recommend to try to combat that issue?
I would really encourage going on social media and really seeing what opportunities are out there. And if you're more of a hands-on person, just reaching out to people in your community who can connect you with those sorts of organizations. But for me personally, I know that social media provides a wealth of opportunities for me to get involved with. And that's something that I also try to help further along for other youth in my posts.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because it's incredible how many different things you've already done by age 15. I know when I was looking at your LinkedIn, it said that you've been involved in the FXB International Climate Advocates Program. And so I
Mhm.
actually did that, but I didn't do that until I was 18. You did that, at 14 or 15, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
it's really incredible seeing all of the people from all over the world coming together with this one goal of trying to learn as much as they can about this topic, and trying with the goal of creating action in their communities or in their country. It's really so inspiring.
And which issues do you think are probably the most pressing for our society today?
Well, for me, I'm most focused on climate change efforts and um, environmental issues and stuff like that. So I think that's one that's really close to me. But there are lots of other issues that are very prominent, like poverty and education and stuff like that. I know that the SDGs are a really great framework for building off your actions and taking your actions, your own actions to the next level, is to really base those actions on the SDGs and the information that the SDGs provides.
Hmm. Yeah, and could you tell people just a little bit more about what the Sustainable Development Goals are and how people could get involved in taking action on them?
Yeah, sure. So the SDGs, or Sustainable Development Goals, were developed by the UN, and there are sets of goals working in specific areas to combat certain issues like climate change and poverty and food security. And there are so many, but there are also really great frameworks to build off of, because they are built in a way that it's globally very prevalent, because they're covering such a wide range of issues that you can look at this and see anything that you want to take action on. It will be there. So it was set out by the UN, and there are specific steps that the UN wanted to take by 2030. And this this framework that they came up with is so inspiring, because you can so many organizations are building off of these, and it's not just the UN that's working on to mitigate these issues. It's so many other people are getting involved, and I would really encourage you to go to the UN website and look at the SDGs in depth, because then you can sort of get an idea of how you want to get involved and what steps you want to take to mitigate these issues.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. And then so you've already done so much by age 15. What are the rest of your goals like as a youth? And then what are your goals to sort of carry environmentalism forward in the future, in your future career? Like what are your plans for the future if you have them?
Yeah, so I'm very passionate about the intersection between technology and environmental issues and advocacy. So I'm that's something that I'm hoping to pursue as a future career, like tying all of those topics together, so that I can do what I love in a career, but also, further help environmental practices and combat climate change. So those are my plans for the future, and just more advocacy and volunteering with other organizations.
Hmm. Yeah, so with technology and all of that, are you planning to work with like AI or engineering new designs to combat climate change? Or what more specifically are you looking at in that, or just all of the above?
I'm really looking at all of the above right now, but I'm most interested in computer science and environmentalism, and also AI and environmentalism, and finding those ways that those topics intersect, so that we can use these technologies to create awareness about climate change and environmental issues.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I wish you the best of luck with all of that. I know I've been seeing all sorts of hackathons that are related to environmental issues, especially
Mhm.
water and water resilience. So
Mhm.
if you ever want to look into some things like that, I think that you'd be very interested in those. Um, but yeah, I think that that's all of my questions for you right now. So thank you so much for joining me today, everybody. This was Clara Brown.